You have kids?
Yeah, 4.
4 kids?
Yeah. Yeah,
Holy shit, man. I had 2 keep me busy.
Yeah. My oldest is just turned 20, and my youngest is 14. 3 girls and a boy.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I got 2 boys.
Do you? Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Boys are fun.
Right.
Girls are cool, too. You going to have any more?
I hope so. I mean, it's up to her.
Yeah.
I love kids.
Yeah.
It's the best.
No, they're the best. It's just busy when they're your kids' age. You know, like...
I know, man. They're so small. Man.
That first 5 years is tough.
And we don't really... I don't know. Handing it off to like a nanny full-time, it doesn't seem like right. I don't know. It just seems nonsense. And I don't know.
Parenting's the most important job you can do.
Right. Especially for the women. The whole career path, bullshit, stupid. Like the most important job you can have is educate and raise your kids properly.
100%. I think it's a lot of what's wrong with our world.
Yeah.
So,
man, speaking about, this is so epic. I went on my first hunt ever with Tim Kennedy.
Yeah.
And he gave me this bad boy, which is sharp as hell, man. These knives are incredible. I've never had something like it.
Yeah, that's our speed goat knife there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, this is like a scalpel.
Yeah.
This is like.
Yeah, they're sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that knife was intended to be, it's lightweight, easy to carry.
Yeah.
Even for people that just want to carry something kind of self-defense wise, like a lot of women will put them in their purses or guys will clip them on. You can go for a jog just because they don't weigh much. But yeah, they're sharp.
And that grip is so freaking cool.
Yeah, that paracord.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's cool because you can take that paracord off and actually use it.
Okay.
You can use it as rope. Like if you were out doing something, you needed rope, you can use it, and then you can just tie new paracord onto it. So, it's pretty cool. What did you hunt?
We were going for, I think, red-tail deer.
Okay. Yeah. Red deer?
Red deer.
Okay, cool.
But I didn't get lucky.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's hunting.
I didn't know, I know. It was my first hunt, and it was my first time. It was crazy because I didn't anticipate that I have this like just a couple of milliseconds where I can make that choice. I thought I would have it like I don't know, stand still for a second or just be like in a good spot, and it never happened. So
yeah. I mean, sometimes you get some time, but man, sometimes you don't, and you have to make a quick choice, and for a newer hunter, that can be really tough.
Yeah. Not only that, it was a little bit after the season, so the owner of the land, this was in Texas, he didn't want us to shoot the male. So the male they already dropped their antlers. Mm-hmm. So Tim was trying to figure out which one is male and female. So he would tell me, okay, the third one, go for the third one. And I would like trying to, and if you shoot a male, I think it's like, I don't know, 10, 15K.
Yeah.
You got to pay.
Yeah.
And for a female, it was like a couple $100.
Right.
So I was very hesitant in making a $10,000 mistake.
Yeah.
It was not like, okay, I got a deer, I'm gonna shoot it. It was like trying to find the right one in the herd.
Yeah.
So it was kind of tricky.
Yeah, that's a challenge for sure. And you really gotta take your time to try to figure that out. And if they're moving around or you don't have much time, that could be stressful. Like you say, you don't want to make a $10,000 mistake. That's expensive meat.
Yeah.
But
so I was hesitant.
Yeah.
Are you a big time hunter?
Yeah. Yeah, I love to hunt. I grew up in Montana, so we have elk and deer, bears, moose, mountain lion. So it's fun to hunt kind of all of those things. I'm actually going on a moose hunt in northern British Columbia this fall with my son. My boy's 16 years old.
Sweet.
And we're going up to northern British Columbia and then going to fly into a lake, and then we're going to take horses. We're going to basically camp off of horses for 10 days just in the bush and I'm going to try and spot and stalk a moose with a bow, and my son will use a rifle.
Wow.
So it's going to be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's what I want to give my boys when, like, I want to take them on a hunt because I never experienced that besides with Tim.
Yeah, there's so much. A lot of people that don't understand hunting what they don't understand is that it's really not as much about the kill. There's so much benefit to being out in nature. When you take your kids out, a lot of times you end up in places you would just never go in your normal course of life, right? You hike into the mountains, or you travel. Maybe it's to a different state. Like us, we're going to travel to northern British Columbia, way, way, way north, about a 26-hour drive north of the border. So we're gonna have an epic drive just all by itself, right? We're gonna see country we would not see if we didn't hunt, and then we're gonna fly into this lake, and we're gonna spend all this time on horses, and we're gonna see probably bears. We're gonna see lots of moose, maybe caribou, and we're gonna spend 10 days without cell phone coverage, right? And we're gonna camp in tents, and have campfires every night, and there's something about just being immersed in nature to that level without electronic devices, and then the challenge of the hunt. Like, are you physically fit enough to do it? The animals get a say too. You have to be stealthy. You get to observe animals in their environment and how they operate, and try to figure them out. And then when you do harvest an animal, the amount of work it takes to get that animal cut up, all that meat cut up. You want to preserve all the meat and use all the meat that you possibly can. Preserve the hide, the antlers, if it's a male, obviously, which will be where we're at, and then get that meat out and home and cut up. So when we're having dinner eating that moose for the next year or more, you're going to be remembering that whole adventure. My kids have played sports their whole life. And I've asked them before what, like, their best ever game that they've ever played. Like, what's your favorite game you ever played? And none of them can remember that. They'll just remember, like, oh, we won a tournament, or we did this or that. But if I ask them about any hunt they've ever been on, they remember every detail of every one of them. So obviously those hunts have an impact unlike anything else that they do. They'll remember where we camped, how many days it took, the funny things that happened, right? Like, oh, Dad fell down and did this, or they remember every detail. And so clearly that hunting aspect out in nature is just having a deep impact on them that they never forget.
And even, for me, even not shooting an animal was still epic.
Sure.
Still freaking epic to be out there. Even we were just running after the deer for hours and hours, and it was the best.
Yeah.
Like you said, no phone, no nothing, just nature, being there with the people that you like and enjoy.
Yeah, and for a kid, you're also, you are also taking a life, right? So you want to do it as ethically as possible, as quick as possible. You're very thankful for the opportunity. That's kind of heavy, and it's not for everybody. But the meat you buy at a store was also a living animal, right? And so, kind of call like stores, with stores and store-bought meat, it's a little bit like you're outsourcing your own murder, right? Yeah. Where if you're a part of the harvesting of that animal, you really tend to respect and care for that meat even more. Like, you never hardly ever see a hunter take a half of a steak and throw it in the garbage can off their plate. Right? Like, you had to work for every ounce of that. So, you might take that half of a steak and wrap it up and put it in the fridge and have it for leftovers, or you just have more respect for your food, and I think you're way less wasteful because the work that it took to get it, and you were there when that animal expired,
And then, speaking about your company, you also have like these epic knives, I think, that have like a round top where you can really get in and open up the front, right? I really want to get one of those.
Yeah, I think you might be talking about, we have a bear tooth knife, which is really rounded.
Yeah.
That knife is actually for like fleshing off the hide. So once you take an animal, you want to clean off the hide. There's meat and there's fat and stuff on the hide. And in order to preserve the hide well, you have to get it really, really clean. So we have knives for that. We have knives. We're generally a hunting knife company, though we've come out with chef's knives. We have a lot of people that don't hunt that just love good American-made quality. They love that they can send those chef's knives back and get them sharpened for free from us for life with any of our stuff. And now we also have some tactical knives that we hope to provide for our military personnel as well as like first responders. But yeah, we have a lot of different knives for different functions. So when you're a hunter, you start to learn what potential blade shapes, and there's lots of different, some people like a smaller blade, some people like a bigger one. And there's lots of different game, right? There's some game that's, really, really small. And then there's, moose that are huge. So, different processes, different knives for different purposes, basically.
What's your favorite meat?
Man, I did take a moose when I was 21 years old. That's been over 20 years ago. That was probably my favorite wild game. And then axis deer, actually, from Hawaii. Mm-hmm. I took an axis deer with my bow in Hawaii on Maui a couple of years ago, and that meat is phenomenal. It's just unbelievable. Tender, really good.
You prefer bow or rifle?
I love bow because your success rate is so much lower. I mean, if 1,000 hunters go out with a bow, maybe 100 will harvest something. So it's now I'm not opposed to rifle, and I've used rifle for sure, but with a bow, you have to get so close. I mean, and you are right there with the animal. Usually within 20 to 50 yards, maybe it's 5 yards. And you can be within 40 yards and still not have a shot. It's amazing how many times you can be 20, 30 yards away and you can't get a shot because there's a branch in the way. Like I say, you want to take an animal quickly and ethically. So there's a certain place you want to hit that animal with an arrow, and you don't want to wound it and have it get away and lose it and have it die and not find it. So the challenge of the bow hunting is incredible. Like with a rifle, you can get 500-600 yards away and make a shot. That animal never knows you're there, but it's probably a relatively easy stock to get there. You go from 500 yards to 50 yards, you have to account for your wind. Those animals smell you like it's unbelievable what they can smell. You have to have your wind right. They can hear, they can see better than humans, right? So, and then there's lots of animals. A lot of times there's multiple animals in that group. So it's not one set of eyeballs, it's 20 sets of eyeballs, and they're all on alert. They all have noses, they all have ears. So you're really up against it. And it's just a cool challenge.
And you like it more challenging?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I love it. Yeah. I mean, if I was starving to death, give me a rifle. But it's cool.
Did you go with your dad? Like, did he expose you to hunting or?
No. No, my dad, we worked a lot, and my dad really wasn't into hunting much, but there was a couple guys locally. I was a kid that was interested in it, and I would ask guys, and, this is something I've said on other podcasts. I think it's a good lesson for, and I don't care if it's hunting or if it's jujitsu or anything else. I was in a small town, and I was asking these guys that I knew that hunted all about hunting, and so a couple guys started taking me. And they'd offered to pick me up and take me, and I was 11, 12 years old. And they taught me how to hunt. And I just took it for granted back then. But now at 43 years old, I look back at it, and I'm like, man, it's really cool that those guys took me as a kid. They didn't have to take me. I was just some kid in town. But it's a great lesson that if you are somewhere in this country and there's a little boy or a little girl asking you 100 questions, maybe it's your kid's friend, and they're asking, you about jiu-jitsu, and every time they're over here with their friend, they're asking you about your jiu-jitsu. At a certain point, as long as it's okay with their parents, be like, hey, do you want to come to jiu-jitsu class and try it out? And you might change that kid's life. You don't know where that little bit of lessons of jiu-jitsu, or maybe it's maybe it's swimming, or maybe it's biking or hiking or whatever it is, photography. you might really change that kid's life because that thing might be the thing that really trips their trigger, and they want to do that, So yeah, it was other people other than my parents. My parents were very supportive, but they just weren't into it.
Wow. Yeah, I want to go hunting, I think, all the time, every year, and then also take my boys. That's like my big goal. And it seems like it's like you said, it's a little tough in the beginning, because these like guided tours, they're like, I didn't know that it was that expensive. Like a lot of times you'll deal with like at least 5 to 10K for a hunt, especially if you want to do something fancy. What would be your like advice if you're not a little kid, but you're like, I don't know, like a grown-ass man like me, but I never had a dad, and I grew up not in a country with guns. So the idea of going hunting only emerged now. Like I'm a new hunter.
Yeah. It's a great question, and I get asked that kind of stuff a lot because I'm lucky I live where I'm surrounded by mountains that you can just go up and go do that. And it is intimidating, right? But buying a gun and putting a scope on it, or buying a bow and getting it set up, and then where do you go, right? And I'm fortunate in Montana, we have a lot of public land where you can hunt for free. You just go up and hunt. And there's regulations, and they tell you, the regulations tell you, the seasons and what animals, can you shoot a female or not? If it's a male, like a buck deer, they have to be a certain size, right? You can't shoot a little spike, because what people need to realize that don't hunt is that hunters actually are trying to take the largest animal. One, it's cool, they've got the big antlers and all that, but that's generally the oldest animal, right? That big buck or that big bull elk is very likely getting towards the end of their breeding life. But a lot of times they keep the young ones away from breeding. So maybe that big bull can't breed all the cows, but he's pushing away the younger bulls. By taking that large one out of the herd, you're providing opportunity for those young bulls that are actually they have a lot of vitality and they're ready to breed and carry on the genetics. So there's regulations, and then, there's different pages that you can follow, and there's different places where you can go look up and follow, a really good educational one is like John Dudley on the archery side, Knock On. He does a ton of archery lessons, from setting up your bow, learning how to shoot, learning how to sight in your bow. I know there's local places where you can go and learn how to sight in your rifle. I would tell people to not be so intimidated by it. I think a lot of it, with especially men, it's ego, right? You don't want to admit that you don't know something, right? But with most hunters, if you find someone who hunts and you say, hey, I'd love to do this, but I don't know anything, they're more than happy to share and show you how to do it. And you don't have to pay tons and tons of money for an expensive hunt. You can go like public land hunting in Idaho or in Montana, and maybe draw a tag where you put in and you draw a tag, and then you can go up there and you can just hunt public land. And a lot of people come up and they fail for the first few times, right? You go up and you think you're going to hunt an area that's good. You're not from Montana, and you show up and it's not a great spot, right? But you learn. And that's a big part of the adventure of it is you're learning, right? And you can ask lots of questions. A lot of times locals will point you in the right direction. You can even call the local game officials and ask them, like, hey, I'm from California and I'm drawing a tag up here, and, where's a decent area to try to go and hunt, right? And with kids, it's funny, so many people are so worried about being successful. When my kids were young, they're loud, they get tired, they get bored. I worried way less about success. I would always take like fire starter and some like food, and we'd go hike, and we were quote unquote hunting. We weren't going to kill shit, right? We were hiking out in the woods, and we were looking for deer, and they were all excited and they're looking. And then an hour in, it's like, well, let's sit down and make some food, right? Or have a little camp. And we would start a little fire, and I'd cook them like a little freeze-dried meal. And they just couldn't believe, like, I'd let them choose, like, where do you want to start the fire? And let them choose a little spot. We'd start it. We'd cook some food. And then we'd put our fire out, and we'd go look for more deer, and then we'd go home, and they'd come home and be like, oh, we didn't get anything. No, we didn't see any deer. And it was more of the adventure of being out. A lot of times people will go and they'll hike and they'll try too hard to kill something, and they'll wear their kids out, right? They'll just hike their kids for miles, like trying to get a deer. And they're missing the point. Their kids are having fun just being outside with their dad.
Yeah.
So, like, go for shorter spurts when they're young. 5 or 6 years old, I killed an elk with my son when he was 6 with my bow. He just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. But we also did a lot of hunts where we didn't get anything, but they just enjoyed being out. So there's lots of places you can learn. There's a page called Hunt and Fool where you can, they will help you put in for tags. You'll call them and be like, hey, I'm a new hunter. I want to try and go deer hunt in Arizona, but I don't know where to go, how to get a tag. And they will guide you all through the process of how to do that and how to do it where you're not paying for an outfitter. It's just the cost of basically of your gas going and camping.
Nice.
Yeah.
I kind of stopped telling people that I'm from California, though.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Especially in Texas, bro.
Yeah.
I just started telling them I'm from Austria.
That's a good... Yeah, if you're from Austria, they're like totally willing to help you. If you tell them you're from California, they're going to chase you out.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a good idea, especially in Montana.
Yeah, what do you think about California?
Man, I've said this several times before, if you just take all the people off of it, it's the most beautiful state in the entire nation. I mean, between the beaches, the mountains, the farmland, the vineyards, like there is no state that's more beautiful than California. It's unbelievable. But yeah, it's just too populated for me. We were just talking. I think we have 1 million people in our whole state of Montana, and you guys have like 8 or 10 million people here in LA, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But
not only that, also it's very. I don't know. Coming from Austria. I love America and what America stands for, and it's very un-American here. All the laws, the rules, and the politics, it's very un-American.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, when I see, you were even telling me earlier that, a lot of kids growing up in Europe and whatnot, look at America, watch American television movies and stuff, and we always, in Montana, we always find it unfortunate that a lot of what people from other countries see is what comes out of, New York and L.A. Yeah. And that's a representation of the United States when there's so many places like Montana and Colorado and, Ohio and Wyoming and Idaho. There's so many other places, where we live. It's incredibly free. I mean, I have a bowling ball cannon that shoots a bowling ball over a mile with black powder. It's as American as hell. I can shoot rifles in my backyard. And my son took his bow when he was 14 years old out behind our place down by the river and ended up shooting a bear by himself with a bow at 10 yards. That's some American-ass shit right there.
He did that?
Yeah. Yeah, he was deer hunting, and he was coming through the brush, and a bear surprised him.
Wow.
And he actually called me on the phone, and he was whispering, and he asked if he's like, can I shoot this bear? And I was like, well, if it's not a sow, you can't shoot a female bear with cubs. And you have to be sure that they don't have babies, And I said, how far is it? And he goes, 10 yards, which is 30 feet. And so then he put his cell phone down on speaker, and I hear his bow just go whack. And he starts yelling, oh, my God, oh, my God. And I was wondering if he was being eaten. I'm like, what is going on? And he's like, I killed it. I got it. And, it was 300 yards from our house back in the timber. There was a bear back there, an old bear. No teeth left in its head. It wasn't going to make it through the winter. Had no fat on it. I mean, it was really struggling. And that's the point of hunting, right? That bear was going to starve to death that winter, 100%. It was already on the verge of, it was hungry. And, he gave it a really quick ending, which is cool. But, Yeah, he did that at 14 years old. He shot a bear when he was 12 with his rifle. He shot an elk with his bow when he was 14 as well. So he's a good little hunter.
What's a good age to get your boy started? My boy's 3 now, but...
Take them out when they're 3 or 4 years old in the woods, and even camping. You know, just taking them out with a tent and start a fire and camp, or take them fishing. You'll probably find that they're going to ask you to go more and more. Like, they're going to realize how fun it is to be out in the woods. And then as far as hunting, you know, sometimes you can go hunt like gophers, you know, and there's...
Do you hunt all year long on different things, or you wait?
Not really. There's seasons. Yeah, there's seasons where there's not much for hunting. There's some things you can go and do depending on where you're at in the country. There's different seasons for different animals. Some states have more or less, you know. Most of the hunting's done in the fall and in the winter. There's some trapping done in the fall, or in the winter and the fall. In the summertime, usually it's like fishing, you know, fly fishing on the rivers. I have a fly fishing raft. To me, it's worth the sacrifice of, instead of maybe living in an area where a person can make more money. You know, I'm biased and everybody has their own way of doing it, but I would rather raise my kids where maybe we make less money, but you live more free and, what do you call it? You have a little bit more adversity at times, right? And but you get to go and experience and do some things that I tell my kids all the time when we're out. When we're sitting on a mountain and we're looking out over a bunch of ground and we're watching some elk, I'm like, there's hundreds of millions of people around this planet that'll never get to do this once in their life. People that dream about doing this, and we can drive 10 minutes, 20 minutes from our house and be doing that. So, you know, we miss out on a lot of things, you know, where we live, but
like what?
Nothing that's really that important. You know, we don't have any professional sports teams, right? There's not a lot going on as far as, you know, plays or, you know, comedy clubs, or, you know, it's not that we live in the, you know, in a teepee in the woods, but, you know, we have our big towns and whatnot, but you don't have the things that the big cities have, right? But to me, the experiences you do have are pretty epic, you know. Things like even the freedom, we bought some property that we're going to build our next building on, and my 16-year-old son is working with a friend of his, and you know, they're running chainsaw every day, cleaning up all this garbage, and they're running heavy equipment. You know, they have a skid steer out there and a backhoe, and they're doing all this work, and they're 16, 17 years old. They get to have experiences. Maybe a kid can go work on a farm, right, or a ranch and ride horses or bale hay, or, you know, different things like that. They, you know, go cut firewood. There's things that you can do in those areas that also are physical in nature. They teach you, you know, resilience, and you get to go earn some money. You know, when he goes and buys a vehicle, he's going to buy a vehicle with money that he earned by working hard, which I think is a good life lesson.
You lived your whole life in Montana?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, pretty much. I was born in Colorado Springs, but we moved from there actually to northern Canada when I was just a week old. And then my parents moved back to Montana when I was 6 months old. My grandpa was up there, and they tried to kind of move up there. But, I've been in Montana from 6 months old on. My parents had an excavation company, so we ran backhoes and excavators and dump trucks and all that stuff. That's what I grew up doing, besides making knives.
And then, being a teenager, you ever wanted to get out of there, or never? You always loved it?
Yeah, I never did. I mean, I know a lot of my friends did. You know, I think similar to you guys in Europe, you know, we would watch television and you see
all the dumb shit.
Yeah, you know, on the TV, the celebrities and the things that the big city has, you know, and skateboarding and all these things, you know, because I was in a really small town. We didn't even hardly have paved roads there. I mean, where I live now in near Missoula, there's plenty of places if you want to go skateboard or do whatever. But, you know, we lived in this little logging town. I had 20 kids in my graduating class. So a lot of kids looked at the big city that, wanted to partake in that. But I think as most kids grow older, they start to appreciate where they live for what it is,
Yeah. Yeah, I just remember I always loved being in nature in Boy Scouts, and we never hunted, but we were always in the woods and always tented, and that was like my best memories. But then the whole internet came around, and you kind of like feel like missing out, and like this thing urged where I was like, I want to speak English, I want to be in America, I want to be a part of culture. And now that I'm older and I have kids, I'm again like, I want to be in nature. I don't want to be in this congested city and have them become like YouTubers,
Right. But I think you can have both, where maybe you need to live here for your business and for what you do, but you can make a point at once a month going to the mountains and doing something, and taking your kids out, or, we kind of make a point once a year to go on a bigger trip. And a lot of times we couldn't afford to fly anywhere, so we would just drive and camp for like a week. And you can do that pretty cheap. You can pack all your food in coolers, and, it's good. The family has to be together the whole time. You're jammed up with each other in the car, and it's tight. But I think people that live in cities can also experience a lot of what we experience more often, but you can do it. You have to make time and make it happen, The cool thing about California is you drive just a couple hours from here and you're in the mountains.
Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunity. California is so lucky because, like, we grew up in Montana just dreaming about being on a beach one time in our life. A lot of kids that I grew up around, never seen the ocean. You live in a special area here from the standpoint, if you ignore all the people, the geography of this area is amazing, where you can be on the beach learning how to surf today, and you can be in the mountains tomorrow camping. It's cool,
None of your kids want to be YouTubers?
No, definitely not. My oldest daughter wants to teach little kids. My second daughter wants to be a veterinarian. She just graduated high school. She's going to play college basketball and try to become a vet. She wants to work on horses and cows, and like large animal vet, not dogs and cats, but big farm animals. She rides around with a vet. She has been since she was like a 7th grader. She rides around and helps a vet work on farms, and she does amazing stuff. I mean, they're doing surgeries all the time, and it's really cool. My son, I'm not sure. I think he wants to hunt. He wants to play probably college football or basketball, and I'm sure he will play either one of those because he's a big, strong kid. And then I'm not sure what my little 14-year-old girl wants to do. But
they got iPhones or no?
Yeah, they all have phones. Yep. We started getting them phones when they were 13 or so, when they got really into sports. We've never had video games. I never let them have video games. I want them to be outside doing something.
What about TV?
Yeah, we got TV. Yep. They like to watch sports and, I don't know, The Office, stuff like that. They're not really big into like the celebrity world or LA stuff or YouTube stuff, really. Honestly, they're so busy with sports. Honestly, they're all in sports almost year round, and they're pretty good at it. So,
when I looked at your social media, I thought it was like kind of epic that you politically take a point or a stance.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like a lot of companies won't do that, or even stand for something that they don't even agree with just to please the social media. And I think like especially posting about knives and guns is really tough in the social media world because they like suppress you wherever they can.
Yeah.
How is your experience with social media?
Yeah, it's a real challenge. I mean, on the political front, I actually try to not do it too much just because even people I agree with, like, I want to go to people's pages and see what they're up to. What are you doing? What's Tim Kennedy doing? Is he hunting? Or is he doing jujitsu? Or is he, jumping out of a plane? Right. I probably know what most of his political stances are. I don't want to see what he has to post about it every single day, right? Because you see it everywhere, right? But I also do think it's important that people aren't afraid every now and then to just say what they believe. And if you and I disagree, that's fine. Like, when people post something, I never go on their page and like bash them about it, right? If they're like, oh, I think Joe Biden's great, I might think they're crazy, but I'm not going to go on. That's their opinion. That's their page. And I can either just move along. I can unfollow it, if I don't want to see it, I could block it, which I think is unhealthy. I think it's good to see both sides. But I'm never going to go on somebody's page and tell them how they should think, I know a lot of people follow me, and I know a lot of people do maybe wonder what I think, and so every now and then I post it. And if I have an influence, I think that's great. But I encourage people to have their own opinion, frankly. Now with social media, you're right, man. Like we are a hunting knife company. We make knives, which I guess Instagram considers a weapon, and so knife and gun companies, we get shadow banned a lot. I'll be honest with you, we post about that once in a while, but we don't sit around and waste time talking about it because there's nothing we can do about it. I look at social media as a complete bonus. When I started making knives when I was a kid, I was 11 years old. When I made knives through high school.
You made knives with 11 years old?
Yeah, that's when I started making knives.
Wow.
Yep. When I was growing my business in high school and afterwards, we didn't have social media. That was the 90s, right? In the early 2000s. You had to buy an ad somewhere, or you had to go to a show somewhere. You had to pay basically to get seen. Social media is free. So yes, it's frustrating here and there, but we have the most powerful marketing tool known to mankind, which is called social media, that we can use at our disposal. And so I am actually, as much as it frustrates me now and then, I'm actually very appreciative that we have it, because you can use, I think social media, I compare social media a lot to a gun. You can use it for good or bad, right? You can even weaponize it against someone, or you can use it to, enjoy and have fun, use it in a good way. And with social media, we choose to use it to try to put out a good message, have fun with it, show our product, show what we're doing every day, and let people that maybe live somewhere else into our life and see what our life is every day, which I think is really cool. And people get a sense of like, well, hey, I live in LA, but I have fun watching this guy in Montana who has cows and hunts and makes knives, And I use it the other way, where maybe I'm like, oh, I'm watching this guy in LA and he's surfing and he's doing jujitsu and he's doing wild shit on the internet, So I think it's we're really blessed to have social media, honestly.
For sure. So, man, when you were 11 years old, like how did that come along with making knives?
My Little League baseball coach started teaching me. He would bring his knives to practice and show the dads, and he was a hunting guide. And I was 11 years old, so I just thought knives were cool. Yeah. And so I was asking him how he makes them and whatnot. And my parents bought me one of his knives for Christmas that year, and he invited me up to a shop to make one. And I made a few up there over the next several months. And I think his way of getting rid of me was to tell me if you want to be a knife maker, you have to have your own shop. So I had a lawn mowing business. And so I had a little bit of money saved up. So I bought a belt sander and I put it in my dad's shop. And then over the years, I just kept buying knife making equipment, and I started making more and more knives. I started going to knife shows when I was 14. And then by the time I was 19, I became the youngest master bladesmith in the world. So I got really serious about it all the way through. I became the youngest journeyman knife maker in the world when I was 15. So I traveled to the Atlanta Blade Show, New York City to a knife show every year, out to Eugene, Oregon every year. And I just had a lot of knife makers that were very generous to like teach me, because they could easily just said like, beat it, kid, you're bugging me. But they invited me in and taught me, which was really cool.
And what else is on the plan?
Well, so after I became a pretty good knife maker, for years I wanted to start Montana Knife Company. Those knives for a long time, they were very fancy, high-end knives. That was under my name, Josh Smith Knives. But I wanted to start Montana Knife Company because I was noticing that the knives in stores were just getting shittier and shittier. They were being made overseas. I felt like there wasn't a lot of quality in the hunting knife world and even in some of the chef's knife stuff. And so I registered the name Montana Knife Company when I was 19, but I actually didn't start it until 2020 when I was 39. I didn't know how to start a company, honestly, like a bigger company. I didn't know how I was going to mass produce knives. I didn't know any of that. And during COVID, I was actually a journeyman lineman for the power company working on power lines. And my new wife, she told me, she's like, I told her about my dream of this company, and she's like, well, you should start it. You should do it. And so I started in 2020 during COVID. I still had my full-time job, and I made a couple hundred knives and sold them. Got my business partner, Brandon, helping me with the marketing stuff. And it just started like taking off more and more. In January 1st of 2021, I just decided to quit my job and go after it. And it got busier and busier during 2021. I kept learning, and we just kept implementing new processes. And today we have 63 employees, and we're making hundreds of thousands of knives, which is really cool. So, I mean, we built, and it's all here in America. So we really built a really, really cool brand.
Yeah, I love this brand.
Yeah.
When did you start the collab with Tim?
I think last year. We actually talked about it for a couple of years. And to be honest, when I first met with Tim.
How do you know Tim?
We met at SHOT Show, actually. Just, I think we actually maybe started talking over, maybe some of the guys at Black Rifle Coffee. I knew some of those guys, and I think maybe I met Tim through some of them. But honestly, when I first met Tim, we weren't even a big enough company to work with him. I mean, we weren't making enough knives. We kind of talked about it, and then we just kept building the company, and him and I stayed friends. And then finally, last year, we were at a point where it's like, all right, let's work together. And Tim's awesome. He shares a lot of our same values, like just hard work, loves his country. He's trying to make people and things better around him. So, yeah, it's awesome working with Tim.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big shout out to him for giving me my first hunting knife.
Yeah.
And my first Montana knife.
Yeah. And Texas is a great place to hunt. Like, man, you should try and go back out there with him, because Texas is a place where there's a ton of private land, but you can hunt more animals more throughout the year than you can in Montana. In Montana, everything's native animals, and so the seasons are shorter and kind of more restricted. Where out in Texas, they have a lot more private land where there's animals where you can kind of hunt lots of different stuff kind of year round. It's a cool area where he's at. I've just hunted Texas one time or twice.
Bow?
Rifle. One time rifle. I shot a deer with a rifle out there. Yeah. And then one time with a bow, me and my friend Tyler from Archery Country, we went out to his property, and Joe Rogan went with us, and we just hunted pigs out there, and I shot a pig with my bow, which was cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely I was thinking about going in fall for deer season back to Texas.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, do it.
Yeah.
It's such a cool experience, for sure. You should do it. And I love that you want to get your kids involved. I mean, you'll find, I bet you for the next several years, you're going to hunt. But then once your kids get to that age that they can hunt, your focus is going to shift to where you don't care if you get anything anymore. Yeah. You're going to be trying to get them stuff. Yeah. And you were asking about age. You know, in Montana, the age is about 10 at the earliest that you can start to hunt. And then really when kids are about 12, 13 is when, like, kids can hunt elk and deer and everything when they're 12 in Montana. Yeah. Different states have different rules, but and I always tell people not to worry about kids, like, worrying about, like, trying to get the biggest animal. You know, you were talking actually about that rancher that wanted you guys to shoot a female. A lot of times they have to do that just to control numbers. So, like, with deer, maybe it's does. They want to take some does, and that's perfect for kids. There's a lot more does. It's a lot easier to find them. And kids are hunting kind of for the right reason. It's for the meat. It's not for the size of the antlers on their head. That's how I started with my kids. I just took them out and we kind of went doe hunting on a ranch where there's just way too many deer and they need to thin some down, you know. Because if they get overpopulated, those animals will get diseases and then it wipes them all out. Yeah. You know.
I know there's a lot of good things that hunters do that you're not aware of if you're not in the hunting community, of how important it is to take out the right animal at the right time.
Yeah.
And also give the genes of the really good male, like, to keep that on and not shoot that down.
Right.
That's what they told me.
Yeah, it's interesting. And also when you buy, sporting goods like guns, when you buy, your bullets and you buy a lot of stuff at the sporting goods store, there's a tax. It's called the Pittman-Robertson Act. And a small percentage of all sales of all of that stuff actually gets pulled out and it goes into conservation efforts, right? So it's interesting. A lot of times people who hike and who bike on trails and that stuff, they don't pay anything to do that. They just go up and they go hike. But hunters, everything that we do, a portion of everything that we spend money on gets pulled out and put into that Pittman-Robertson Act, where a lot of the trails that hikers hike on and bikers bike on are actually paid for by hunters, which is interesting. Even hunting overseas, like in Africa, for big animals, right? Elephants and wildebeest and stuff like that. A lot of people here, they don't understand. They're like, oh, why would you kill an elephant, right? It costs so much money to go and do those hunts that all that money that gets spent in those areas, it goes into helping preserve those animals, because like elephants and a lot of those animals over there are very, very destructive to the villages. But those animals are worth so much money that those villagers don't kill them, right? They don't poach them. And if it wasn't for the money that they're worth, a lot of those villages would just get rid of those animals because they actually cause destruction. So it's a little bit, hard for people to understand, but the fact that those animals hold such a value actually keeps them protected, because those, and when a hunter over there in Africa takes an elephant, all that meat goes to the village. It'll feed that whole village. And so I know guys that have taken our knives over there hunting, and they said, man, it was emotional to them because they didn't realize how, when they shot that animal, how big of a deal it was going to be to the village. And we're talking people who are starving to death, or at least don't have a lot of food. And they had people coming up to and hugging them and thanking them, and because they actually got to eat meat for the first time maybe in months, which is pretty cool. So there's a lot of benefits to hunting that people just don't understand.
Do you buy meat?
Yeah, a little bit. We don't as much anymore because the last number of years my kids raise 4-H animals. Do you know what the 4-H program is? Mm-hmm. It's a program nationwide where kids enter into the program at about 10 years old, and they can buy a baby lamb or a baby goat or a calf, a baby cow, and they can raise them up throughout the year, and then they take them to the local fair and they get judged on how they raised their animal. And it kind of teaches them in a really small way how to be like a rancher, right, or a farmer. And so when you raise your animal and you bring it to the fair, the judges will judge, like, did this animal get fed properly, right? Are the genetics good in that animal? Or is it bred well? Is that steer that you brought in way too fat, right? Or is it way too thin? Did they not feed it enough? And those kids have to feed that animal. Like when my kids raise steers. And they also used to raise hogs, pigs. So my kids get their steer as a calf in November. They have to raise it all the way through the winter. They have to buy all the food for it, all that stuff, and they sell it here in about 2 weeks in August at the fair. So they have that animal about 10 months. And it teaches, like, my kids, no matter what's going on in their life, if they're going to a basketball game, they're going to a dance, they're going to the lake or the river with their friends, morning and night, their animal needs fed, right? And they have to watch it if it gets sick. They might have to call a vet and have the vet come out and help vaccinate it, keep it healthy. But it teaches kids, and they also have to tame it down. When we get those steers off the ranch, they're wild. And they put a halter on them. My kids get drug around, and they start to get that animal's trust. And by the fair, and you'll see pictures on my Instagram in a couple weeks, my kids will be laying on a 1,400-pound steer with their arms around them, taking a nap at the fair. And those steers are just laying there, licking them. I mean, they're like best friends. And then at the fair, it's a very sad day because after all the judging and all that stuff's done, then they sell them. And people come in there and they bid on them and they buy the steer. And that steer gets butchered, over the next couple weeks. But that last day, those steers get loaded on a truck and they head to the butcher shop, and all the kids are crying, and it's a terrible day. But those kids get the money from that sale, and so they've learned how to break an animal, how to get its trust, how to feed it, how to give it its proper medicines, and how to show it, and all the things that they learn how to do, all the way up to the end of which, like, hey, this is the life cycle. This animal's getting butchered. At the end of the day, that's going to be a steak on somebody's plate. And so my kids, we have 3 steers right now, and then we raise an extra one along with those, and at the end of the year, we'll butcher 1 steer, and we'll put it in our freezer. And we also have 2 hogs that we raise, and we'll butcher those. So we don't buy a lot of meat anymore. We raise it. But what's so great about that is we know we're getting, like, the best meat possible. They're not getting, like hormone steroid shots or, crazy things happening to them. They're being taken care of. They're not stressed out. These animals are loved on like crazy. So the meat is incredible when you eat them. But yeah.
So that's how you keep your kids busy with sports and taking care of animals?
Yeah. I as a parent, I think I have really, really good kids. And I will honestly say I think busy kids are good kids. Yeah. I don't want them sitting around looking at their phone, watching YouTube all day. I want them outside doing shit. It's like you got basketball practice, you got workout in the morning, practice after school, maybe practice for another sport, or you got your homework. You also got to take care of your animal. Hey, there's, your steer pen's got a foot deep and cow shit in it. It's time to clean the pens. We got to get straw for the bedding, hauling feed in, getting their hay. I think all that stuff is good for kids. It keeps them busy. My kids were weighing them the other day. I was in Utah at Total Archery Challenge, and my daughter, my 2 daughters, my 14-year-old and my 18-year-old, were texting me. They weighed them, and they all weighed like 1,400 or 1,350 pounds, and they're leading them on a rope by themselves. I think it's good for them because it also builds confidence. Like, if you can lead around a 1,400-pound steer, you can do about anything, So
who taught you all these things? Like, is it passed down or from generations to generation, or did you just teach yourself?
No, I mean, I learned some stuff from just other friends from watching, I had friends of mine that had older kids, and they were doing certain things that I was like, when I have kids someday, I'm going to do that.
Because like when you grow up in the city, it's like almost like all these things have been like taken from you because you just know how to use a computer and how to drive your car around. And, most people, men, I guess in LA can't even change a tire.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel really bad for kids. It's by no choice of their own, but I do feel really bad for kids that live in a city and don't have opportunity to learn some certain life skills. I mean, I understand not everyone can have a cow, right? But the FFA program, that program in the United States is made for people who can't have cows and pigs at their house, but they can keep them at a facility close, like in a city, and then go there to the facility and take care of their animal and then go home, right?
Even in LA.
Yeah, and I would imagine somewhere around here there is one.
FFA?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll bet you. I'll guarantee it.
Because I don't want my kids. It's so like I always like as a parent, you always want the best. Everybody wants the best for their kid, and I don't want my kid to be like not resilient. And I want them in kaushe and like doing proper work. But also to now go to a farm and start a whole life on a farm seems also like a little naive, you know, because you run this podcast, you make all your money over social media. Even going to Texas, it's just not that easy when you're used to getting all these people on and having all these people come through LA and like.
That's again where you can take your kids and you can find a farmer or a rancher and say, hey, can I bring my kids out for a weekend?
Yeah.
And can we just help you? You put us to work. You want us to fix fence or shovel cow shit, or we just want to work alongside of you, right? And I'll bet you can find someone even that has a small place around here that's got just a couple acres. And it's like, can we come help you clean your horse barn and wash your horses? Or, I think there's ways that people can, I'm not saying it's easy, but I think it's actually, I think people who have those animals, somebody like me, if somebody showed up and they were like, hey, on Saturday when you guys are working with your cows, can I bring my kid out from Missoula because we live in an apartment and we don't have this, but like I want my kids to learn? I'd be like 100%. And I'd bet almost everybody that's got animals like that would be willing to let somebody come out, because I think people like us that have those animals and have that stuff want more people to be exposed to it. The changing tires thing's funny too, because like I've taught all my kids when my daughters are these really pretty girls. They're athletes and do whatever. But like when they go to change their tires for winter to put studded tires on, they change out their own tires. Like they can go in my shop, they put sockets on the rattle gun, they jack the car up, they rattle the tires off, they put the new tires on. Because I never wanted my daughters to be dependent on a guy. I want them to be able to do their own thing, just learning how to do certain things that make them capable, Now, if our tires need changes on my car, my wife's going to be like, that's man's work. Go get that shit done. But she could if she had to, and that's the point. It's like, if you have to do something, are you capable? That's why I teach all my kids like to shoot guns. Can they shoot a pistol? Can they load a magazine, put it in a gun and shoot it? Can they make it safe? All my daughters have all shot deer and packed them out on their back, all camped in tents. It's just stuff that makes them know that in the back of their mind they can do hard things,
You always had this attitude?
Yeah, for sure.
You never wanted the easy way?
I think it's a trap. I mean, we still live a pretty easy life. I mean, just by living here in America, we live really pretty damn easy. You travel, I've traveled to other countries. Even people here that have it hard don't necessarily have it as hard as people in other areas, So, we still have we heat our house in the wood, mostly with wood heat. We chop our own wood and stuff, but we have propane if we need, or we have electric heat. And it's not like, I live in a really nice house with air conditioning, so it's not like I'm roughing it in some tent. But I also have a wood stove in my house because if the power goes out for 2 weeks, I can keep my family warm in my house with wood heat. I never want to be beholden to a system working well, right? Like if all else fails, we can boil water and we can heat our house and we can eat meat out of the freezer or whatever and survive. It's good to know.
How do you feel when you come to LA?
It's interesting. Like I feel claustrophobic when I go to New York or LA, and I travel quite a lot. I carry an inReach, so like a little satellite phone. It's not really a phone, but you can communicate without cell phone service. Carry an inReach and a headlamp in case shit goes south and you gotta be on your feet and move, and communicate if cell phone towers are down or something like that. But I don't know. You're also kind of helpless here a little bit because if things went really, really bad and everyone's on the streets or everyone's on the roads, it would be a bad situation. Where we're at, you could get away from people and keep your family safe. And, worst case scenario, if I had to shoot one of our steers in the field and butcher it to stay alive and eat it, like we literally can catch fish out of the river, like it is a crazy world we live in. Like if I was a lineman for the power company, I worked on, setting power poles and I climbed power poles for a living and put up wires and did the power thing. The power grid is, I think, especially down here, is very, very, like on edge, precarious. Like if you lose power here for a week and people know it's an attack of some kind, like a EMP or something like that. Look how fast the shelves emptied during COVID. And that, you could argue, is kind of a fake-ass emergency.
Yeah, but it emptied pretty quick.
Real quick, right? Because you have 10 million people around here. If gas pumps don't run and trucks can't get fuel and truckers stay home or don't restock shelves, and everyone panics and runs down to the store in the next 24 hours, it's gonna it'd be real scary to be down here. Not that I'm trying to shit on your hometown here, but I don't know. What would you do? What would you do? Let me ask you that. Like if you lost power here in an attack, like you got word like something happened and somebody attacked our grid and you're not going to have power here for a month, what would you do?
I don't know, man.
You have a car?
Uh-huh. I would probably go north.
Okay, so even if you could do that, the roads are probably going to be jammed, right?
Yeah.
But even if you can do that, how far can you drive your car?
Well, it's an electric car, so not too far.
How far?
I would probably make my way and try to find some people I know over the hill.
Okay.
That have like gas cars.
Yeah.
And also there's more space.
Mm-hmm. Because you can only drive as far as your gas tank will take you.
Yeah.
And now you can't fill up.
Then you got to walk.
Right. So do you keep, it's like, do you keep extra water around?
No.
Right. Like at our house, we actually keep, and I'm not a crazy prepper. I'm probably sound crazy on this, but when COVID happened, it made me realize, like, damn, like shelves just empty that fast for something that's not even like a big deal, really. Yeah. And so I told my wife, we have these big plastic bins, and I told her, I'm like, this was months later, like things were normal, and I was like, it's our job to like make sure our family's secure. I was like, why don't you go to Costco and buy like some big bags of like beans and rice and flour and some sugar or whatever, and like put it in bins. So she went and spent probably $500 on just a bunch of stuff. But it was like, however much, like the most amount of food that money could buy, right? Beans and rice, and like you can make a lot of meals out of a 50-pound bag of rice, right? Compared to just a light little box of rice. And then what she does is when we run out of any of those ingredients in the house, she'll fill out of that. And then when that kind of gets low, she'll just put a new bag in there. That way it doesn't just go bad. But it's like, well, if that ever happened and the shelves were empty and you had enough food in 2 bins to feed your family for 2 months, like you're probably sitting pretty good, you know? But yeah, I don't know. Like it'd be tough because you have 2 little kids, right? So if you're on foot, it's 100 degrees. Like where would you go and what would you do, you know, for food and water, fresh water, running water? Because you got to remember, if the power grid's down like that, the city water system's probably shut down, right? Because that's all working off of electric pumps. So I don't know. It's kind of scary.
You're fucked down here. For sure.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of is like take my hunting rifle and try to go north, because I think there's springs. There are springs north.
Yeah.
And you can hunt meat. So you gotta just go towards the springs, get a tent. I have a tent.
Yeah. Yeah, I would think having...
But I'm not a big prepper.
Like working together, you know? Yeah, and it's like, well, maybe that means you keep just 2 bins of food in your house here that's like some rice and beans and something where you could be like, hey, we can, as long as we can find some water, we could cook like rice and beans here for a couple weeks while shit got straightened out, you know? I don't know. It's an interesting question, but it's like when I fly in and I see all those houses and I think, man, in a case of an emergency, what does this place do? It's scary, you know? It's crazy.
Do you worry at all up there where the world is heading, or not really?
Yeah, I don't know how anybody wouldn't worry about kind of where the track we're on. It just seems like our politicians, I don't care what side of the aisle, it doesn't seem like they're really working for what's actually best. You know, it feels like it's special interest, and we're more worried about what's going on in Ukraine or Israel or China or whatever. And I watch the presidential candidates talk about stuff, and I rarely see them like talk about how they're going to solve the issues in Chicago or LA or wherever, right? Just America. It's not specific to just cities, but like, you know, the fact that more people are getting robbed and shot, and our criminal justice system, and you know, I think overseas issues are almost easier for them to talk about because you don't see the results every single day, right? And honestly, if you made me king, I don't know how I would fix a lot of what's going on in our country. So that's the other thing, like, right, these problems we have as a nation are hard. They're fucking hard problems, you know? So the only way those are going to get fixed is people work together, but you turn on your TV, you don't see anybody working together, you know? So it is concerning as to what kind of country we're passing down to our kids, you know? We can't even agree on a man and a woman, you know? It's wild, you know? It's crazy to me. We argue about the stupidest shit. But I don't know. I've been to Abu Dhabi. I've been to Dubai. I've walked around in those cities in the Middle East and felt way safer than when I walk around Boston, New York City, LA, right? Austin, you know, it's just a white dude walking around, right? Or anybody, it doesn't matter. Just somebody walking around. It's like, I shouldn't feel safer in Dubai than I do here, but I do. I think that's fucked up, you know? So how do we solve that? I don't know. It's challenging. And the power grid is a real issue. I mean, like I say, we're drawing more and more power every day. But I also understand, like, the only way we're going to serve more power into a place like LA is to build power lines to it. But nobody wants a new power line in their backyard. Trust me, I built power lines. People they're not real happy when you want to put a power line in their backyard. So we have real challenges that we have to actually like work together to solve. But
yeah, it's crazy because, like you said, the focus is always, instead of in to the land, it's like out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And people do forget, like even with the whole like Afghanistan, everybody's outraged, and then everybody's like whatever.
Yeah.
And then the Ukraine, and then it goes to the next topic like Israel, and then everybody just forgets that all the millions and billions, I think, that they sent.
Billions. And trust me, I don't think I'm not, I feel for the, Ukraine, that Russia's doing what they've done. But I also think if it was that big a deal, or if people were worried Russia was going to take over the rest of Europe, that I'm pretty sure Europe would do something about it. Like, I don't know that we necessarily need to. It'd be like if you heard that one of your best friend's neighbors was picking on him 5 miles away or something, and then you decided to run over there and do something about it. And it's like, well, I'm pretty sure all the neighbors right there can handle that guy.
Especially while your own house is on fire.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if America was thriving, maybe you can intervene. But if everything is going crazy here.
Yeah, it's and there is a serious divide between, you look at the cost of housing, like even where we're at. So many people poured into Montana from California and other places in the last 5 years since COVID that it drove our home prices up a couple 100%. You can't touch a house up there for less than $600,000. It's more like 600 to 800 or more. And I built my first house there back in 2002 for 180. That house is now 700. But you can't tell me that the wages have gone up 500%, So it is concerning. Like, I have kids graduating high school, and I'm like, I don't know how the hell they're ever going to afford to buy a house, So, we have some serious issues in our country with the inflation, the price of, gas and food. And, as you go fill up your cart at a store, you get a hell of a lot less food than you used to for the same price, which is, I think, also why living in an area where you can grow some of your own food is a real advantage, And I think that's why, working from home that's why so many people are moving into our areas. You can now live in Montana and fly to LA once a week, and you can work on your computer. It's things you couldn't do in the 90s, The internet and airline travel has made it a lot easier to work, to live somewhere else and work somewhere else.
Man, just don't mention that you're from California.
Yeah. A lot of Californians that are moving up there, I gotta say, I mean, people shit on them, but we have a lot of good people. I mean, it's just, if they move up there, they have to remember why they did, and not try to come up there and then create the same problem that they just left. But I understand why a lot of people want to get out of these places when you see how the government's been running and the taxes, and how much money do you have to make before you can actually keep $1,000 in your bank account? It's crazy. But I don't know. Hopefully it gets turned around.
When you go hunting, do you take your family with you, or they stay back?
It depends on the hunt. Every year for years, we'd go over to eastern Montana and deer hunt with the whole family.
Yeah?
Yeah. 4 or 5 of us out there. I'd take my camper. We would set up our camper and camp every night, and then we'd all hunt together. When I go to British Columbia this fall, I'm just taking my son with me. My wife and I, we went elk hunting last year for her down in New Mexico, and then my boy came down. He hunted. So yeah, it just kind of depends.
Dang. Okay. That's a big dream of mine too.
Yeah.
Take everybody up, at least so they can enjoy nature.
Yeah.
You know.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a blast, man. You'll absolutely love it, and they'll love it. It's a great thing to do together. It really is.
Right. There's nothing like even just making a fire and sitting around a fire with your family.
Yep. 100%. And it's fun to try to choose an area to go hunt where there is no cell coverage, where they can't sit around the fire at night and stare at their phone.
Yeah.
But have to talk to you. It's cool to like leave service for 5 days and have no idea what the hell's happening.
How many times per year do you do that, or per month?
Oh, a couple times a year.
A couple times a year?
Yeah, maybe. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so much cell phone service around, it's a little bit hard. But like in Canada, when I'm on that hunt, we'll be out of cell phone coverage for probably 12 days straight.
Wow.
Yep.
Just you and your son?
Mm-hmm. Yep. We're taking a camera guy actually with us too that works for us. Nice. We're going to film it.
Nice.
Yep. So it'll be great. Yeah, there's a lot of stories about hunters that were hunting on 9/11. Sean DeGray that runs Total Archery Challenge, he was actually hunting, they were hunting moose, and he noticed that there was no airline traffic. Like they were sitting around and it was like, I don't think I saw a plane today. And then the next day, they were like, I don't think I saw a plane today either. And then the third day, they were like watching, and they were like, dude, there's no jets in the air.
Yeah.
Like didn't see one jet fly over for like 3 days. And then a guy flew in a little small plane and radioed him and said, hey, I'm actually not supposed to be flying, but we're just letting you guys all know there's been an attack. Can't tell you a lot about it, but we'll be back in a while, but just wanted you guys to know what's going on, And then he came out of the bush after that hunt and saw everything, but 9/11 happened and they were just hunting and had no clue, Kind of wild.
If somebody's watching and they live in a big city, they've never hunted before, what would be your advice? Like, is it for everybody to get the hell out of the big cities, or is there some sort of balance you could think of?
I think you have to be, people have their livings, they have their lives, they have their families, like, people are going to live in big cities. So my only advice would just be, look at your calendar and just put it on your calendar and say, we might suck at it, but like this September 1st, we're going to go here and we're going to try to hunt. And between now and then, we're going to try and figure out, maybe how to get a gun sighted in, watch like John Barklow, his Instagram page. He does a great job of like helping people understand like what should be in your hunting pack, right? What's some survival stuff, some rain gear, where are you going? What's the weather going to look like? I would suggest people go and try hunting and doing stuff in an area where maybe the conditions are pretty easy at first, where you're not surviving terrible cold, wet conditions, but there's lots of places they can go and just start to learn on, that's a great thing about YouTube and social media. You can learn anything. If you want to become a podcaster tomorrow, you can YouTube it and start learning it. How to hunt deer in Wyoming. You start learning it. Start watching, Aaron Snyder, John Dudley, watch our stuff, and don't be afraid to shoot someone a message and be like, hey, I'm going here, I'm doing this. What do you think? What do I need to do? But I'd say just put it on the calendar and say, I'm going to do it, and then figure it out, and have a low expectation of quote unquote success, right? Because the success is in the trip. It's not in the harvest.
Yeah. Can you have a fulfilled life without hunting?
Oh, I'm sure you can. Yeah.
What about you personally?
No, I love it. I mean, but again, I could go without shooting something the rest of my life and be fine as long as I get to go hunting. It's the being out. It's like the time with your family or your friends. You know, there's hunting camp with family, and then there's hunting camp with 4 other dudes where you're just acting like idiots, you know, and laughing and joking and sitting around a fire. You know, the camaraderie of it, it's a blast. I went bear hunting in British Columbia with just some guys, and it was just fun to just hang out and bullshit, and you know. So again, the last thing is the killing of the animal. I just like this hunt this fall. I look forward to the 26-hour drive with my kid. We're just him and I in the truck driving all the way across Canada, north to south. You know,
26 hours. Wow.
One way.
Yeah.
Then we got to drive it home. You know, sounds fun to me. But that's because I get to be with my kid, you know, without all the distractions of everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. I mean, there must be also the best thing for your kid, right? To look forward to that.
Yeah, well, when he's 30 years old, I can guarantee if you ask him about his sophomore year in high school, there'll probably be only one thing he really remembers. It'll be that trip.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. You know, none of us really remember anything about our sophomore year in high school. It's just all blends together generally, unless something either really traumatic happens or really something really amazing happens. So hopefully this is amazing. But
yeah, especially if your dad, I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
Yep.
I feel like.
Yep.
I think that's every son would wanna do that. Right.
Exactly. Yep. I would hope so. I mean, there's unfortunately a lot of parents have 16-year-olds that don't want to be around them, but I think that's part of why getting them out in the field when they're really young, you grow a bond together from that.
Well, maybe it's also because you're like a miserable in your job and in your life, and
Right.
the kid don't want to be around that, right?
Yeah.
But if you're like, I don't know, to see your dad out in the wild, I mean, you want to be like that,
Right.
I guess, right?
Exactly.
But if
Yeah.
if your dad is working a 9 to 5,
Yep.
it might be hard for the kid to be like, okay, I want to do that, right?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Try to be something that your kid wants to look up to.
Because then people always like, they want to say that you can't really force a kid, but if you are so happy doing something, how could the kid not want to try that, right? You don't need, I don't think you need to force your kid to go on that trip.
That's why I say even just starting off with camping.
Yeah. Like, do you force your kid to go on that trip?
No, I never have had to. No,
Right? Or talk them into it?
No. And then, you know, when my little girl, for the first several years, she never wanted to go hunting. And I never forced her, you know. And we went several years in a row. My other girls and my boy went. And when Macy was probably 11 or 12, she came to me and she was like, do you think I can go deer hunting this year, Dad? And I was like, 100%. Like, it was like, I was super excited, you know. But, you know, hunting is something that is, you know, it's real. I mean, you're killing an animal, right? And that's not going to be for everybody. But that's why I say, like, being out in nature is a different story. Like, whether it's camping or just for a day hike, right?
That's for everybody.
Yeah, should be.
Yeah.
Get out and appreciate this beautiful country you live in. I mean, even in California with the craziness of all these buildings and all this stuff, I just flew over it. I just flew over a bunch of beautiful country with lakes and mountains and, you know.
I mean, even if you're fucking vegan, you got to get outside.
Yeah, 100%. And do something hard, you know. Wear your legs out and go see how many feet of elevation you can climb, or go find some snow or whatever, you know. I think that's also why people love to ski, snowboard, because you're in nature, you know. Surfing, you know, you're out in nature. You're out in the ocean, you know. It's pretty cool.
So when I went with Tim, we were running after these deers, right? And then they smell us. But then we found this perfect spot where the wind goes like
to your
our
face.
direction.
Yeah.
So they cannot smell us, and we're not moving, so we're still. So we get super close. I mean, like really like bow distance. But they're all male. And
Yeah.
you just sit there and watch them.
Yep.
Because I can't take the shot. He's looking. He's like, okay, this one, no, never mind. Like it's a boy. So they're all guys, and I can't shoot them. But just to witness the pure, it's like AI. Like you cannot believe what your eyes are seeing. This wild animal just standing there.
Yep.
It was the most, like you said, it was an unsuccessful hunt, but the success of watching the scenery of a wild deer, and you're sitting there, insane.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Man, all right.
It's awesome. No, I'm glad. I'm glad that you are so interested in it, and you know, I think you're going to have a lot of. I can just tell, like, you're going to make it happen. You're going to have a lot of fun with your kids. You know.
Yeah. I'll have like 10 years to get good.
Yeah.
So that
and you're going to go and you're going to suck. I mean, you know.
But that's the best part. That's what I love about jiu-jitsu too, because you fucking suck.
Yeah.
Everybody sucks.
Yeah.
That's the best. That's the best part.
Yeah.
If you would be good at it,
right.
I mean, go find something that like gets you out of your comfort zone and challenges you.
But then you're going to notice, like, the next time you're going to notice like big improvements.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, man, I'm actually like getting better at this, or like, I learned a ton about that last spot I went. Like, I'm going to do it different next time.
Yeah.
Like,
you know, I'm happy I didn't catch something the first hunt. I mean, what would that be if it's that easy that you can shoot something right away the first hunt?
Right.
Because now I want it even more.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. No, it's very cool. Well, man, thanks for having me on.
For sure.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I hope everybody really goes and checks these things out, man, because it's like you said, the weight, the handcrafted US, it's amazing.
Well, I appreciate it, man. And that it's called Montana Knife Company, and it really is like I'm living the American dream. I mean, I started that in my garage in COVID. We're sitting here today with all these employees, and I'm talking to you in LA, and it's like, you can chase your dream. I started that business while I was working a full-time job. I got up early in the morning. I went to bed late. It truly is like, you know, people say the American dream is not alive and real, but it is. If you want to work hard and get up earlier than everybody else and go to bed later and kick ass, like, you know, you can build a company, you can build a brand and quit your job and chase your dreams. So, we're proud of what we're doing. We're proud of the fact that we're hiring so many people here in our own country, and we're making those here. And it's really neat that people are taking those knives and going and having experiences like you did with Tim. It's you're taking a part of us along with you, which is really cool. So, and the fact that people are using like our chef's knives in their kitchens, you know, every single night making food for their children, like, that's pretty badass, you know, that we get to be a small part of that. So, yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and also thanks for sharing the things about your kids and your family.
Yeah.
It might be the norm for you, but it's inspiring and cool to, you know, how somebody else deals with parenting.
Sure. No, there's no perfect way, right? Yeah. It's just do it your way the best. And I think it's good. I think parents can also learn a lot together with their kids, whether it's hunting, whether it's how to raise a goat or a cow, right? Like, I think what's really good for parents a lot of times is to pick something with their kids that neither one of them know anything about and learn it together. You know, it creates a cool bond. So that's what we did. I mean, when we started with 4-H, I didn't know anything about it. You know, we just started doing it, you know. So it's been cool. And, you know, they can also save up a lot of money. My daughter has her whole first year of college paid for just from her 4-H animals, from selling them. So they learn about business as well, which is, it's the whole package, which is cool. So, yeah, thanks, man.
Awesome. All right.
All right.
It.